This is what my belly looks like in a CT scan. These are my abs and this is my belly button. And this is a scan after 7 days without any food. The purple stuff is all fat. And after 7 days without food, a massive amount, about 26% of this fat, was apparently burned off. Recently, my buddy Abraham and I did a 7-day fast and tracked several dramatic changes to our body. We jabbed a glucose sensor into our arms to track our blood sugar. We had our different wearable devices tracking our sleep. We used a scale to track our weight. We both got a CT scan before and after. And we used a fasting app to log the huge fluctuations in our energy, productivity, and especially mood throughout the 7 long days without any food.
So hungry.
I wanted to do this fast because I had been quite stressed out at the time, so I was hoping to get some of the mental benefits from fasting I had been reading about. And Abraham was looking to get a jumpstart on his weight loss and fitness goals. We learned a couple things about hunger and losing weight. We experienced plenty of unexpected challenges, but also unexpected benefits. And saw some interesting differences in our results. To be honest, we really didn't prepare in the best way. So I just finished my last meal, which was a bunch of ice cream.
2 scoops, sir?
2, make it 3.
We had an all-you-can-eat Korean barbecue for dinner on Friday. Abraham's last bit of food was Oreos and a sparkling water at 9 p.m. And I finished my ice creams at 9:30. My huge last meal led to an unsurprising spike in my blood sugar. What you're actually supposed to do is lower your blood sugar before a fast, because the benefits from fasting don't really start until you've burned off your body's sugar stores.
Okay, so I've been fasting about 20 hours. I feel pretty good, even though the first day is usually the hardest. I think the trick is to just stay really busy.
I was onto something here because I was actually surprised at how easy the first day was, until I sat down to wait for a table at a Chinese restaurant with Abraham and our girlfriends. I was suddenly feeling really hungry, fatigued, and was extra pissed off that we had to wait a perfectly reasonable amount of time. While it wasn't ideal watching them eat all kinds of delicious looking food while I just drank tea and salt, the issue was more that I finally had some downtime. I stopped moving after doing my taxes, working, and walking around all day. For the fast, by the way, we only consumed water, tea, and black coffee. Since fasting can deplete salt and electrolytes, leaving you feeling drained and tired, we were also taking salt and electrolytes in our water. In fact, it's thought that hunger is sometimes the body simply craving salt. As you'll see later, I was surprisingly able to cure my fasting fatigue and hunger with extra salt many times throughout the fast. Looking at Abraham's mood journal, I don't think he was initially too satisfied with his tea at the Chinese restaurant. Plenty of tea, salt, and chatting lifted my spirits, and it looks like Abraham ended the day not feeling too bad either. Unfortunately, by 2 p.m. the next day, things started to go downhill for him.
Pretty exhausted. It's hitting me kind of hard. Trying to stay positive, obviously, but it's like, I feel like my head is a little like lightheaded. Tired.
So about 41 hours into the fast at this point. Today was pretty easy. The morning was easy, but then when noon rolled around, that's when things got hard because that's my usual eating time. When I have to do anything complicated, I get pissed off. Like I had to set up this dumb before shot. Now I feel way better now that I'm just out and walking. About 42 hours in, I just logged a frowny face on my fasting app, feeling pretty drained. So we're about 44 hours and 20 minutes in, feeling a lot better. I had a little bit of sparkling water with some salt, and now I've upgraded my journal to a slightly smiling smiley face.
What was interesting about Sunday was that near the end of the day, I experienced a huge drop in blood sugar late afternoon, which coincided with a big drop in how I was feeling. Same with Abraham. Around the time there was a big dip in blood sugar, he was feeling pretty bad. You might have heard that all the energy your body uses comes from the carbohydrate or sugar in your blood. But when the body is low on carbs, it can produce ketone bodies from fat that the brain and body can use for energy. However, even after you deplete your stored sugar, it takes a while for the body to start burning fat and producing these ketones. So at this point, we were probably experiencing the very unpleasant state of low blood sugar and low ketones. However, later in the night, it seems I was in light ketosis as my ketones hit 0.8 millimole. And now that my body finally had some ketones to use for energy, this is probably why my mood started to improve.
Third day on the fast, woke up not hungry and feeling actually pretty good. So that's a first. Then a keto test strip and definitely almost purple, which is great. Not too hungry, but obviously if you put some food in front of me, I definitely would want to eat it. I feel like I'm in like that flow kind of feeling because my thoughts are just making sense. Best way I can explain it, it's like focus really well on my thoughts rather than being all scattered like what I am most of the time.
On this day, I woke up feeling not very refreshed and had a gnawing in my stomach. My sleep data didn't show that my sleep was terrible, but I slept less than usual and in particular was getting less REM sleep. While I wouldn't say this day was super difficult, I was getting a little frustrated and discouraged. I wanted to do this fast because in March, I had been reading several studies talking about the various alleged mental benefits from fasting, like significant reductions in anxiety and depressive symptoms. One study found significant improvements in emotional well-being for over 1,000 people doing multiple day fasts. My usual background hum of anxiety had been a bit stronger than usual, so I wanted to see if fasting would actually improve my mood. But by the end of the third day, if anything, I was more anxious because I had a ton of work to do, and the fasting was just making me less productive. Abraham ended day 3 feeling pretty crappy and started day 4 Tuesday with fatigue and muscle cramps.
Yeah, I'm pretty exhausted. I'm not hungry, but it was hard to actually take the shower. I feel like I have really low energy.
Abraham's usually full of energy and is the kind of guy to light up in social situations, so it stood out to me when he said he wasn't particularly energetic or even smiling for his sales job. On top of his work being affected by low energy and brain fog, he continued to feel bad pretty much the whole day. He was nauseous and dizzy, which are very good reasons to stop fasting. So I suggested he should probably just throw in the towel.
Down, stay down.
The next day we met up to talk about the fast.
Okay, so what happened yesterday?
Yesterday, day 4, I kind of woke up feeling the crappiest I've had in this whole fasting experience. Woke up with like a headache, body aches. I also was not able to focus. I had really low energy throughout the whole day. So I was definitely not myself, and that was really detrimental to my work. After my work, I took a 3-hour nap, and essentially that didn't help at all. I woke up feeling dehydrated. I felt body aches and I had a slight headache.
So why was Abraham feeling so bad? Well, blood sugar is normally expected to be between 70 and 100 milligram per deciliter. However, this day was when his blood sugar was the lowest, dipping several times under 70, and it briefly went as low as 54. So some of his symptoms were probably low blood sugar. However, as blood sugar drops while fasting, the body tends to secrete a bunch of sodium. The sodium in salt has a bad reputation, but sodium is actually really important for the body. The symptoms of not having enough are pretty much what Abraham had: fatigue, weakness, headache, nausea, and muscle cramps. So it made sense that he felt a little better when he had some salt, but it didn't entirely do the trick for him, so he took a long nap, but still continued to feel bad. Now, the electrolytes potassium and magnesium are thought to get depleted during fasting, and symptoms of low magnesium are weakness and nausea. Also, I remember several years back when I did my first and only other 7-day fast, it was actually pretty terrible, way harder than this one. I felt weak and fatigued for most of it, and I happened to be drinking loads of black coffee during that fast. Now, Abraham had been taking one of these per day to supplement the electrolytes sodium, magnesium, and potassium, but he was also drinking 2 to 3 cups of black coffee a day. Not only does fasting itself deplete electrolytes, but to make things worse, caffeine depletes sodium, and it makes it hard to absorb magnesium. And when your magnesium levels are low, the body excretes more potassium. So if I had to take an unqualified guess, I would say that Abraham was probably low on sodium and maybe magnesium and potassium due to the 1-2 punch from fasting and coffee. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet was that Abraham was doing all this despite the most ridiculous sleep and work schedule. He had just moved to Japan, so his work was still on American time, meaning he was waking up at 3 a.m. every morning to do sales calls for 8 hours straight, all while doing the fast. Despite this intense schedule, Abraham decided to push through and continue the fast. Now, there are plenty of benefits of fast of a few days or even just 16 hours, so if you're feeling ill on a fast, it's probably better to celebrate your gains and restart your fast another time. Abraham had some salty broth that night, which helped at least for a little while, and he went to bed not feeling terrible, but not great either. Luckily, my day 4 Tuesday wasn't too bad.
Today was pretty easy. Yesterday I had some low points around the times that I would usually eat, And today I had low points again around the times that I usually eat, but it was about half as rough as yesterday. And then sometime around the afternoon, I had a couple boosts in mood. I was feeling really good, like I had a cup of coffee or something.
This is when I finally started to feel like I was experiencing benefits to mood. I often carry a lot of tension in my shoulders and neck, but on this day, as I was walking around, I noticed that tension was no longer there. In fact, while honestly I was thinking about food a lot, my mind was free of the usual worries and anxious chatter about things I need to or should do. I wasn't euphoric, but I was feeling much more calm and content than usual. I went for a run after taking this video log, and while I felt pretty much normal, I didn't quite have my usual endurance.
So today, day 5, I actually was feeling really good, energetic, no brain fog really at all. I was hitting all the key points. I actually felt like myself, right? So I was crushing it there. And then throughout the day, I mean, I've pretty much had the same amount of energy as if it was a normal, like before day 1, before this fast. And then today we've just been like hanging out, even playing like games like DDR and like really active out here, and I'm not feeling exhausted, you know. We're still going, you know. I have a lot of energy, and honestly today is 1,000 times better than yesterday.
We just did 30 minutes of a pretty intense aerobic video game. How do you feel?
I was winded during, but I feel fantastic now. I feel like I'm energized and I can still take on the world.
So you're not gonna pass out or anything?
No, I don't think so, not yet. I mean, I've got like my electrolytes and stuff, so.
As for me, this morning was pretty bad. I woke up really early, about an hour and a half earlier than usual. I was feeling pretty crap, kind of low blood pressure. I was up for another 2 hours or so, and then I went back to bed and got another hour and a half of sleep. Felt a lot better, but then I still had this really like drained feeling. So I took a bunch of salt, and then I had my caffeine, and then now ever since then I feel great. Like I'm not even hungry. I just feel a little bit more focused on things than usual. I'm a little bit more in the moment and not so scatterbrained compared to usual. So I just kind of feel like myself, not hungry, feel good. I can focus on things. I can do the work that I need to.
I had several moments in this day when I felt even better than my normal self. My mind felt even more quiet and calm than the day before. And it wasn't so much that I was amped up like I took a stimulant, but that I could really focus and enjoy the present moment as if I had just done a super long meditation session.
So I took a bunch of salt.
Let me comment real quick on this. I mean quite a bit of salt, about 9 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of salt dissolved in a bunch of water. Looking at my mood journal, there were 8 entries over 5 different days that said something like, I was feeling bad and hungry, then I took salt and felt better. Whenever I felt weak, fatigued, or too hungry, I would take some electrolytes with however much salt it took to feel better. And it almost always worked. What's interesting is that despite having more than 20 grams of salt on this day and the day before, my blood pressure was on the low end. Makes you wonder if it's not the salt that gives people high blood pressure, but whatever they're eating with the salt. Now, let me warn you that 9 grams is kind of a huge amount of salt to take at once. I don't recommend starting out with that much. I suspect my body is adapted to a high salt intake, as I've been eating a ton of salt since I made a couple videos about it in 2017. During a fast, I'd recommend you introduce salt slowly, maybe 2 to 3 grams at a time dissolved in a cup of water. On day 1 at the Chinese restaurant, I offered Abraham some tea with a bit too much salt, and it made him nauseous. For the record, you can successfully do a water fast without any extra salt or electrolytes. People do that all the time. However, I simply feel fasts are much easier when I do add them, especially in the first couple days.
I was noticing just about an hour ago, I had this real nice lift in mood, kind of like I get when I drink some caffeine. I noticed that I was just real positive, didn't have any of that monkey mind, anxious worrying about things that I need to do or should have done or whatever it might be. And I just was reaching out to all my friends, felt really chatty, really sociable. That's usually how I feel on caffeine. But this was happening even though I hadn't had any caffeine, so
as you can see, the rest of day 5 and day 6 was pretty great for both of us. Interesting how the days got easier the longer we went without food. At this point, let me comment on hunger.
The almost unexpectedly difficult part of the fast was definitely the amount of hunger I had. I did not expect for that majority of the time how extremely hungry I would get.
I definitely know what that feels like, as that's how I felt on my first couple fasts. However, I feel like your perception of hunger changes the more fasts you do. I feel hunger can appear as either bad or neutral. Like the neutral is more like maybe you feel a bit of gnawing at your stomach and eating food sounds really fun, but you can go about your day no problem. The bad is when it feels like there's a hole in your stomach sucking out all your energy and you're irritated and struggling to be productive. I did have that on this fast, but it was only around my normal eating times, and it only lasted about 45 minutes to an hour. The first 3 days I got hungry at lunch and dinner times. Days 4 and 5 I only got a little hungry at lunchtime, and days 6 and 7 I pretty much didn't have any hunger.
I guess the easiest part of the fast was when I got over the hunger need or the need to eat, which was like around day 5 or 6.
This one paper said that hunger disappeared for 93% of people doing 4 to 21 day fasts.
This morning I actually felt, I woke up at our usual around 3-ish, and I didn't feel too good. I didn't have the same amount of energy as day 6 or day 5. I started working, and after once I started hitting like 8 or 9, I started feeling similar to what it was like day 4, like a train wreck, except for like the muscle aches. It was really difficult for me to actually focus or even want to do anything because I just didn't have any energy. I was feeling really weak, so I took a nap and stuff, but that didn't help. And then afterwards, I actually made it over here to Joseph's place, and then he was like, "Hey, have some coffee." And then finally, at around like 1-ish or 1:30, I started feeling normal. But most of the day, I have not feeling good. So.
On this morning, I woke up way too early at 4:50 with a huge stomach ache and low energy, but decided to just stay up and work. After taking about 8 grams of salt, I was feeling better and surprisingly alert and focused, and got a lot of work done. Later, I took a nap to recoup my lost sleep, and I went to the gym and did pull-ups and squats for about 30 minutes without any issues. By the way, I did get my muscle mass checked, but the best thing I could find was the InBody device, which apparently is the best bioimpedance device for measuring body fat and muscle mass. However, I've heard that it's still not that reliable. And when my results said my body fat percentage was 6%, almost on par with Chris Bumstead's, I knew these results were garbage. So unfortunately, I can't really say what happened to my muscle on this fast.
No, of course it's not accurate!
So the rest of the day went pretty good for me, and Abraham was back to his old self after some coffee. There's still a lot to break down about this fast, so let's jump to my before and after footage. I think there's a noticeable difference in my body, and particularly my face.
Enhance.
By the way, I forgot to take a before picture, so this is actually 20 hours into my fast. For weight loss, I lost 6 kilograms or 13.2 pounds, and Abraham lost 5 kilograms or 11 pounds. After the weigh-in with 2 hours to go on the fast, I decided to do 250 push-ups. Not that 250 is particularly impressive, but I think the average person who's never done a fast would assume that after 166 hours without food, you would barely have the energy to go about your day, much less do push-ups for 30 minutes straight.
So anyways, the point is, it's been 7 days, haven't eaten, and I'm not falling down. I can do a push-up.
And Abraham was okay to exercise too. As mentioned on day 5, we did some pretty heavy cardio, and it's not like we had better endurance or anything, but we didn't collapse either. But for the record, I don't recommend ending a 7-day fast with a bunch of exercise. Before we get to our other data and the realities of fasting, let's talk about eating. So, what was it like finally getting to eat after all that time? To be honest, it was a little anticlimactic. It's definitely relieving and enjoyable to eat, and while I felt I could taste things very clearly, it wasn't like it was abnormally pleasurable. I was surprised at how full I got from this since it was only about 500 calories.
Yeah. I'm pretty full. Yeah.
Abraham said he also got full really easily after breaking his fast. Now, while I was physiologically full after my small meal, I was satiated. Psychologically, I was really excited that I could eat again. And I went ahead and ate another 1,000 calories of meat, kimchi, and sweet potatoes. The next day was similar. I would eat, and my body would quickly tell me I was full on a small amount of calories, but I kept eating until I hit my usual 2,300 calories or so because eating is fun, and I could finally eat. So pretty quickly, I was back to my usual eating habits. But if you're trying to lose weight, I expect you could maintain some of this post-fast reduced hunger for a while if you just eat to satiety.
Maybe the first day, but what about the preceding days? Would you say it was really easy to get full?
For sure. Like any little thing I would eat, I would be full.
In my last video about fasting, I talked about a paper where people fasted for 2 weeks, then were, quote, perfectly satisfied with an 800-calorie diet that they ate for another 2 weeks. Now, that's pretty drastic, but if I had to recommend something, I would say commit to a period of time where you eat just healthy foods and a set number of calories after your fast. In my experience, it really does seem like fasting resets your appetite and your cravings. So if you're doing a fast to fix your diet habits, you can use that period right after a fast to make eating healthy and eating only to satiety your default. Earlier that afternoon, around 5 p.m. on Friday, we went and got our CT scan results. The way a CT scan works is like slicing a ham. It takes snapshots of little slices of your body. So here, you're basically looking down into my torso from above. Now, this test isn't measuring overall body fat percentage, but it's measuring the area of fat in a midsection slice. As shown at the start of the video, it seems like I lost 26% of the area of fat near my belly, and Abraham lost about 7%. I'd expect there to be discrepancies in how the before and after pictures were taken, so maybe my fat loss wasn't so high and maybe Abraham's was higher. The reason for the big difference in fat loss might be due to so-called fat adaptation. I've been experimenting with fasting ever since 2016 or so. I did 1 meal a day for almost 2 years, I was eating every other day for a couple weeks at one point, and I've done tons of 2 or 3 day fasts. So my body and liver may be more adapted to the process of switching from relying on glucose or sugar for energy over to using fat and ketones for energy. So the silver lining is that fasting should get easier the more you do it. Also, sleep is very important for fat loss, and Abraham definitely did not have the luxury of a nice sleep schedule. As for my sleep data, what was interesting was after 24 hours of fasting this night, I slept much longer, and my sleep was apparently better than the 3 days before the fast when I was eating normally. The app gave me my best sleep score yet, 85, and the percentage of my sleep that was REM sleep was way higher, 27%. However, you can see that there was a bit of a decline in the amount of sleep I got as I progressed in the fast, and the percentage of my sleep that was REM declined noticeably. Abraham's REM sleep was declining throughout the fast, then it jumped up after 5 days of fasting, dropped down after the 6th day, and then shot back up after he ate some food on the 7th day. If you're still curious about what happened on this fast, drop a comment below. As I mentioned already, I was taking a bunch of salt and electrolytes to curb my fatigue and hunger throughout the fast. That's where this video's sponsor Element comes in. I was drinking a bunch of these during the fast. On some days, I was having 4 or 5. The phenomenon where your body excretes more sodium and electrolytes is essentially due to drastically reducing your carbohydrate intake. So as someone who's been playing with fasting, low carb, and keto diets for a while, I was really happy to find out about Element. Also, I find they give me more energy for my workouts regardless if I'm doing low carb or high carb. Element tastes great, and my favorite thing is there's no junk in it. It's just a well-balanced mix of electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, a bit of flavoring, and some stevia. If you prefer, there's also a raw unflavored type with no sweetness or flavoring. If you go to drinklmnt.com/whatI'veLearned, you can get a free sampler pack with any purchase. One last thing, I'm working on a course about the ins and outs of fasting. So if you're interested in that, check the link in the description.